There are moments in life when it feels like everything is falling apart. The job you thought you'd have forever slips away. The relationship you invested in breaks. The dream you worked so hard to build crumbles. In those moments, it's easy to ask, God, where are you? Why didn't this work out? But here's the truth. Every closed door, every delay, every detour is not God abandoning you. It's God redirecting you because He has a better plan for you, one greater than you can imagine. When we talk about the truth that God sees what you cannot see, we are stepping into one of the greatest mysteries and assurances of the Christian walk. Life often feels like a series of snapshots we are trying to piece together, and because we can only see the moment we're in, we assume that moment defines our entire story. But God is not bound by snapshots. He sees the entire film beginning to end, and He knows how every scene connects to bring about something greater than what we could design on our own. Think about how limited our perspective really is. When something unexpected happens, a job ends, a dream crumbles, a relationship shifts, our natural response is to interpret it through the lens of loss or failure. We say to ourselves, this didn't go the way I planned. This must mean I failed, or worse, that God has forgotten me. But what we don't realize is that what looks like the end from our angle is often just a redirection from His. We only see the surface, but God sees the roots. We only see the immediate pain, but God sees the ultimate healing. We only see the closed door, but He already sees the better door that is waiting just a few steps ahead. God's perspective is eternal. He is not measuring our lives by single moments of disappointment or success. He measures our lives by destiny, by calling, by the bigger picture of eternity. What we think is the worst day of our lives might actually be the turning point that leads to the best season we've ever walked into. Sometimes what we interpret as rejection is actually divine protection. The job you didn't get, the relationship that didn't last, the plan that fell apart, it may have kept you from stepping into something that would have harmed you, delayed you, or pulled you away from your true purpose. Take a simple example. Imagine a child who wants to play in the middle of a busy street. From the child's limited view, that street looks wide, fun, and open. But a parent steps in, holds the child back, and says no. To the child, it feels unfair. It feels restrictive. They can't understand why the parent would keep them from what looks good. But the parent sees the cars the child cannot see. The parent knows that what looks open and harmless is actually dangerous. That's how God works with us. We see the wide open street and think, that looks good. That looks like where I should go. But God, in His eternal perspective, sees the oncoming traffic. He loves us enough to say no. He loves us enough to close the door. He loves us enough to protect us from something that could derail the destiny He's shaping in us. In the same way, what we often call failure can actually be God laying a new foundation. Think of someone who poured years into building a business only to watch it collapse. From the outside, it looks like devastation. But from God's perspective, He might be clearing away what was built on the wrong foundation so that He can rebuild on one that is unshakable. What looks like a collapse is actually a reset. What looks like an ending is actually preparation for a stronger beginning. One of the greatest challenges for us is to accept that God's sight reaches farther than our own. It requires humility to admit, God, I don't see what you see. I don't understand why this happened, but I trust that you do. That kind of faith is not blind faith. It's faith rooted in the belief that the one who sees the unseen is good, faithful, and intentional in His plans. Scripture reminds us that His thoughts are higher than our thoughts and His ways higher than our ways. If we truly believe that, then even when life doesn't go according to our script, we can rest in the truth that His script is far better. Let me give you a short example to illustrate this. A young woman once applied for a job that she desperately wanted. It seemed like the perfect fit, the opportunity she had been waiting for. She prayed, prepared, and gave her best in the interview. Weeks later, she got the call she didn't get it. Heartbroken, she asked God why He would allow her to be rejected from something so ideal. For months, she struggled with disappointment, not realizing that God had something else in store. Less than a year later, she was offered another position, one she hadn't even known existed at the time of her first application. This new job not only aligned better with her gifts, but also connected her with people who later became instrumental in her life and calling. Looking back, she realized that if she had gotten what she wanted, she would have missed out on what God wanted. The rejection wasn't rejection at all, it was redirection. That is how God works. He sees what we cannot see. He sees the dangers we don't recognize. He sees the opportunities we haven't even imagined yet. He sees the people, places, and possibilities that are waiting just around the corner. Our role is to trust Him enough to let go of what doesn't make sense right now, believing that He is working all things together for good. So when you're facing a situation that feels like a loss, when you're staring at a door that just closed, when you're holding the broken pieces of a plan that didn't work out, remind yourself of this truth. You only see part of the picture, but God sees the whole masterpiece. What looks like failure is often foundation. What looks like loss is often protection. And what feels like the end may just be the beginning of something far greater than you ever imagined. When it comes to the journey of faith, one of the most difficult things for us to understand is the difference between a delay and a denial. When we pray, when we plan, when we set our hearts on something, we often expect God to move immediately. We live in a world of instant results, instant messages, instant downloads, instant meals, and we unconsciously bring that same mindset into our relationship with God. When He doesn't respond in our timing, we assume the answer must be no, or worse, that He has forgotten about us. But the truth is, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. A delay is not a denial. Sometimes it's a sign that God is doing something in us, around us, and through us that requires more time than we expected. Delays test our patience, but they also refine our faith. If everything came instantly, we would never grow roots. We would never learn endurance, perseverance, or trust. Waiting seasons are not wasted seasons. They are often the proving ground where God shapes our character to match the size of the calling He has for us. The reason you haven't stepped into that breakthrough yet may not be because God said no, but because He is preparing you for what He has already prepared for you. There are blessings you cannot yet carry because your foundation isn't strong enough. There are opportunities you can't yet handle because your character needs to be deepened. God loves you too much to give you something prematurely. Think about the image of a farmer. When he plants a seed, he doesn't walk out the next day expecting a tree. He waters, he waits, he protects the soil, and he understands that growth takes time. The delay between planting and harvest is not wasted, it's necessary. In the same way, God often plants a dream in our hearts, but then allows a season of waiting before we see it come to life. That waiting is not punishment, it's preparation. It's in the delay that our roots grow deep, our faith grows strong, and our dependence on Him becomes unshakable. A short example of this is found in the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. God gave him dreams of leadership when he was just a teenager. He saw himself ruling, standing in authority, and being lifted above his brothers. But the fulfillment of that dream didn't come right away. Instead, Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and left in prison. From the outside, it looked like nothing but setbacks. If Joseph had judged God's plan based on timing, he could have assumed that the dream was dead. But those years of delay were not denial. They were preparation. God was shaping Joseph's character, teaching him humility, wisdom, and resilience, so that when the time came, he would be ready to step into leadership without pride or immaturity. At the right moment, Joseph was elevated to the second highest position in Egypt, and the delay suddenly made sense. What felt like detours were actually divine steps toward his destiny. In your own life, delays can feel frustrating. You might be praying for a breakthrough in your career, a promise in your family, or a dream you've carried for years, and it feels like nothing is moving. But God has not forgotten you. The delay doesn't mean denial. It means preparation. What He started, He will finish, but He will finish it in the right time. And when it happens, you will look back and realize that the waiting was not wasted. It was in the waiting that you were strengthened. It was in the waiting that you learned trust. And it was in the waiting that you became the person capable of carrying the blessing when it finally arrived. When a door closes in life, it can feel like rejection, failure, or even abandonment. We tend to interpret a closed door as the end of a dream or the collapse of an opportunity we worked hard for. But what if that closed door was never meant to harm us, but instead to redirect us? The truth is, closed doors often lead to greater opportunities. God will not allow something to end unless He has something better prepared ahead. The no you experience today might be the very thing making room for the right yes tomorrow. One of the challenges we face is that we get attached to our own plans. We map out what we think life should look like, and when things don't go according to that script, disappointment sets in. Yet God, in His infinite wisdom, knows the plans He has for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us hope and a future. When He closes a door, it's not because He's against us. It's because He sees what we cannot see. He knows that some doors, if they remained open, would lead us away from our calling, away from peace, and away from the fullness of His blessing. A closed door is not a dead end. It is a signpost toward destiny. Many people who have discovered their true calling, their greatest opportunities, or their most significant breakthroughs can look back and realize that it only happened because something else ended. The job they didn't get forced them to find a better one. The relationship that broke apart freed them to meet the right person. The dream that seemed to die opened the way for one that was far greater. What felt like loss in the moment turned out to be protection, redirection, and preparation for something new. It takes trust to believe this in the middle of the pain. When you are standing in front of a closed door, you might not see what's ahead. All you see is what you lost. But if you can hold on to faith, you'll discover that the very thing you thought was against you was actually working for you. Closed doors are not God's rejection. They are His redirection. Every no clears space for the right yes. Here's a simple example to make this real. A young man once applied for a scholarship to study at a prestigious university. He was confident he would be chosen and had already imagined what his future would look like there. When the rejection letter arrived, he was devastated. He felt like his entire plan had collapsed in a single moment. But a few months later, another opportunity arose, an unexpected offer to study at a different school in another country. Reluctantly, he accepted it. What he didn't realize at the time was that this new path would lead him to meet mentors who shaped his career, friends who became like family, and eventually a position that aligned perfectly with his gifts. Looking back, he could see that if the first door had opened, he would have missed out on all of it. The closed door wasn't the end. It was God guiding him toward something better than he had imagined. In your own life, the closed doors may not make sense right now. You may be tempted to think you've been forgotten or left behind. But the truth is, God's hand is still on your story. If a door closed, it's because it wasn't the one meant for you. He is not trying to rob you of opportunity. He is preparing you for greater opportunity. And when the right door opens, you'll understand why the others had to shut. Every closed door is an invitation to trust Him more deeply and to believe that His plan is always greater than ours. Pain is one of the hardest things to make sense of in life. When we go through loss, heartbreak, betrayal, or seasons of deep struggle, the first question that rises in our hearts is often, why? It can feel like suffering is pointless, like the hurt we are experiencing has no value other than to break us down. But in the hands of God, pain is never wasted. He does not allow anything in our lives without weaving it into a greater purpose. What hurts you today can shape you, refine you, and even become the very thing that equips you to help someone else tomorrow. Every trial we walk through teaches us something we could not have learned otherwise. Struggles build compassion, patience, and resilience in ways that easy seasons never could. When you've walked through disappointment, you gain a sensitivity to others who are hurting. When you've faced financial struggles, you carry wisdom and empathy for those trying to get back on their feet. When you've endured rejection, you understand the pain of others who feel unwanted, and you can speak encouragement that resonates on a deeper level. Pain sharpens our ability to connect with others because we no longer speak from theory, we speak from experience. God also uses pain as preparation for calling. Some of the most powerful leaders, healers, and voices of hope are those who have endured deep hardship. Their authority doesn't come from having an easy life. It comes from walking through fire and coming out refined. The struggle you're in today may feel unbearable, but it could be the training ground for the assignment God has ahead of you. Your tears are watering seeds that will one day bear fruit in ways you can't imagine right now. Another important truth about pain is that it becomes a testimony. What once felt like it would destroy, you can become the very story that brings healing to someone else. When people see that you have walked through something hard and survived, it gives them hope that they can survive too. Your pain becomes a message, a witness that God is faithful even in the darkest times, and that testimony can set others free from despair, fear, and hopelessness. Here's a short but powerful example. There was a woman who battled cancer for years. She endured surgeries, treatments, and countless nights of fear and exhaustion. In the process, she often questioned God and struggled with doubt. But through her journey, she found a deeper faith, learning to lean on God in ways she never had before. After she went into remission, she began volunteering at a hospital, spending time with patients who were just beginning their own battles. Because she had walked the road herself, her words carried weight. When she told them they could get through it, they believed her, not because it was a nice idea, but because she had lived it. Her pain had a purpose far greater than she could see in the middle of it. It not only strengthened her, but also became a source of strength for countless others. This is how God works. He does not delight in your suffering, but He does redeem it. What was meant for harm can be turned for good. What the enemy tried to use to break you, God can use to build you. And one day, when you are on the other side of the valley, you will realize that your greatest ministry may come from the very place where you experienced your greatest pain. Trusting the author of your story is one of the most freeing choices you can make in life. Too often, we try to take the pen into our own hands, determined to write every chapter according to our plans, our timelines, and our expectations. But the truth is, we are not the authors. We are the characters in a story much bigger than ourselves. God is the one who began the story of your life, and He is the one who will bring it to completion. You are not forgotten, you are not overlooked, and you are certainly not abandoned. The author knows every twist, every setback, every unexpected turn, and He is weaving them together for a greater ending than you could ever imagine. When you look at a story halfway through, it doesn't always make sense. The hero may be in a prison cell, the plot may look hopeless, and the future uncertain, but that's because you're only in the middle of the book. If you stop reading there, you'll never discover the redemption and the victory that was planned all along. Life works the same way. We often judge our circumstances based on the chapter we're currently in. If it's a hard season, we assume the entire story is ruined, but God has already written the ending, and His word promises that it is one of hope, grace, and ultimate victory. The same God who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. He doesn't start something and then leave it unfinished. If He gave you a dream, planted a calling in your heart, or began a work of transformation in your life, He will carry it through to the end. Even when you feel like you've failed, even when your path has detours, even when the enemy tries to derail you, the author doesn't put the pen down. He rewrites, He redeems, and He continues the story toward its intended purpose. What makes trusting Him difficult is that we don't always understand the process. Some chapters are filled with joy and blessing, while others are marked with loss and pain. But every part matters. In a great story, even the hardest moments serve a purpose in shaping the character for what lies ahead. God uses every page, both the ones we celebrate and the ones we wish we could erase, to prepare us for the destiny He has written. Here's a short example that captures this truth. A man once dreamed of becoming a professional musician. He worked tirelessly, but doors seemed to close at every turn. Eventually, he gave up on the dream and took an ordinary job, feeling like he had failed. Years later, while volunteering at a local youth center, he began teaching music to kids from broken homes. To his surprise, they connected deeply with his story, his struggles, and his passion for music. Many of them went on to discover their own talents and find confidence they never thought possible. Looking back, he realized that if his original plan had succeeded, he might have been chasing fame rather than making a difference. God had been writing a different story, one where his gift wasn't wasted, but redirected toward a purpose far greater than he could have imagined. What looked like failure in one chapter was actually preparation for a far more meaningful calling in the next. That is the beauty of trusting the author. You may not understand the current page you're on, but he knows how it all fits together. He is writing a story of redemption, of victory, and of grace. When you place your life in his hands, you can rest in the confidence that the final chapter is already written and it ends in hope. So if you're facing disappointment right now, don't lose heart. The ending you see is not the end of the story. It's a new chapter beginning. God has a better plan for you than the one you thought you needed. Lift your eyes. Trust his timing. Believe his promise, because what's coming is greater than what's gone. And when you look back, you'll say, God, your plan was so much better than mine.